352-412, or go to events at ppirevents.com. PPIR, professional people in real estate.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
All right, 10 minutes before 10 o'clock. Nice looking day. I know we're all keeping an eye on the Weather Channel and listening to the weather report on the radio because we got a storm coming. But right now it looks pretty good, right? So this gives us like a false sense of everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's the same thing that happens when we take medications that we think are going to be good for us. I have here in my hand, this was given to us a long time ago, and I've never had to use it, but there was a guest in the studio, and for those who don't realize where we broadcast from the mall. We can see the sidewalk outside the window, and the guy who gave me the thing I'm going to tell you about said to me, "Have you ever seen somebody overdosing outside the window?" And I said, "No." He says, "Well, you will, eventually." And so he gave me this Narcan nasal spray stuff, right? Mm-hmm. The first thing it says, in the directions on how to use it, identify opioid overdose and check for response. Holy mackerel.
Yeah.
I'm a radio guy. I don't even know what I would be looking for.
Yeah, that's scary.
All right, Dr. Jonah Stulberg is on the phone. He is a general surgeon. He's a health services researcher and the opioid stewardship lead at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. So he's going to educate us a lot. There's a website he's going to tell you about. He's going to tell us how to implement opioid stewardship and drug disposal programs around the U.S. What is going on? Good morning, Dr. Stulberg. It's an honor to have you on the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
You're well. Thank you. And where are you? Where are you calling from?
Chicago. We're in downtown Chicago.
So this opioid thing is a national thing, international thing? Am I right about that? It's everywhere?
It is primarily a national problem. Unfortunately, it does seem to be spreading to some countries, but it is primarily a problem in the United States.
What happened? I mean, did we prescribe medications?
You know, it is a very complex problem that we came to over many years that has many different drivers that has led to it. And now we're faced with 16.7 million people who are using prescription drugs for non-medical purposes. They're abusing those medications.
Ah, okay. And does that work hand in hand with the disposal program we're talking about today?
It absolutely does. What we're talking about today is what each and every one of your listeners can do today to help combat the crisis. It is something, getting rid of those medications is something that all of us can do. Talking to our friends, making sure they don't have any and getting rid of them is an easy way for us all to make a difference.
Is it better for the hospitals to step up or law enforcement? I know sometimes our area, the Ocala Police Department and the Marion County Sheriff's Department, they have drug drop-off days.
Yeah, those are wonderful events. I would say it's each and every one of our responsibilities. This is a crisis that, as you guys were talking about, affects all of us. It's something that you may even just see right outside of your window. If we all had conversations with our family members, you may be surprised how many of us have friends and family who've struggled with this issue. So it's such an enormous problem that is something that affects each and every one of us. And so it's something that our healthcare communities, our pharmacies, and our law enforcement agencies should be stepping up to try and solve.
And do we need this service because sometimes the prescriptions are getting out of control as to how many prescriptions are being issued?
Yeah, so it's a very complex problem. As a general surgeon, I'm focused on what we can do in the surgical community to make a difference, and that comes in a lot of different varieties. What we're talking about today is making sure that we educate our patients, educate our community, that when those opioid pills are no longer being used under the express direction of a physician, they aren't something you should just carry around in your purse. You should have in your glove compartment in case you have a little pain in the future. They're actually quite dangerous medications for you and dangerous medications for our community, friends, and family. And so they really should be disposed of when they're no longer in use.
So I think that's the part I need help understanding. It sounds like the people who take them after the prescription has run out or after they're not prescribed anymore are doing it to relieve pain. Are they also doing it to get high?
So that's a difficult question to answer. What I'd say is that right now, we have millions of individuals that undergo surgery every year. And opioids are still part of the pain management strategy that many surgeons have to rely on to make sure that our patients are adequately cared for. And so many of us kind of keep those pain medications around just in case. And you would do that just as you would, buy, let's say, Tylenol or ibuprofen at the drugstore and say, well, just in case I have a headache, I'm going to use this. But what they're not recognizing is that there are very dangerous side effects to using these medications. And while a prescription that is given at the time of surgery may be very much appropriate at the time of surgery, it is no longer appropriate when you're out of the surgical episode.
So I obviously want to get to the point of the disposal part. If I flushed it down the toilet, does it contaminate the water supply, or is that a bad idea to do it that way?
That's correct. It's not a good idea to flush them down the toilet because we have so many of these pills in circulation that if everybody was doing that, it'd have really devastating effects on our water supply and our marine life. And so we really do recommend that they're disposed of appropriately, that you find a drug disposal location either at your hospital, your pharmacy, or law enforcement agency, and that you allow them to dispose of them through incineration safely.
Okay. Is there fear of not incarceration, but you know what I mean? Are people going to be in some kind of legal trouble if they bring in those medications to the police?
Oh, absolutely not. These programs are really focused on improving the health and welfare of our communities. There are no questions asked. I think a lot of times people do have nervousness that they'll be judged, that other people might look at them, why do you have all these pills? The reality is that all of us do, and they're just so prevalent. They're so easily available in society that we all need to take the right step and just get rid of them. But these are no questions asked programs.
Did the program begin at the Illinois Surgical Quality Improvement Collaborative?
So actually, we started this program several years ago in the Digestive Health Center here at Northwestern Medicine. That's my clinic where I operate out of. We took and put a drug disposal kiosk right front and center in our clinic, and we made it part of the fabric of our care. And we saw such wonderful results that really did change the culture around prescribing, but also disposal, that we spread those learnings to the Illinois Surgical Quality Improvement Collaborative and now to other hospitals, other quality collaboratives, and others across the country, because we want everyone to learn from our practices and we want to learn from their practices so that we can provide better care.
So real quick story, I don't want to take up too much time, but when my father died, he had, was it morphine?
Morphine.
And we were told to mix it with coffee grounds, I think it was, and that's how we disposed of it. Is there, and just let me use somebody's death as a way to ask a question. It's kind of a creepy way, I guess. But I mean, if somebody dies, how do we know which ones are the opioids, or should we just throw them all away the same way?
Ooh, good question.
That is an excellent question. So the best thing to do is when you have a loved one that passes away, many may have been on hospice care and have been provided a lot of medications you might not be familiar with. Many of those can be very dangerous, not just the opioids. And so we recommend that those be taken to any of these drug disposal programs. They're non-discriminatory. You don't have to separate out your opioids and your, expired Tylenol or your other medication classes. You just bring them in and throw them away. That's a no questions asked. That's the easiest way to do. Any of these DEA-sponsored programs will take any of those medications.
And are assisted living facilities following that procedure also? Because sometimes the clients do pass away and they are on different kinds of medications.
Yes, actually there are a lot of legal changes that are in the works to allow for these drug disposal kiosks to be more readily available outside of certain specific settings. But it turns out that because they are such highly sought-after scheduled medications, that there are ramifications and certain security practices that have to be put in. So many of our assisted living and other centers are working towards trying to get these, but there are some legal loopholes that they're still coming up against, and so these are relatively new practices for us.
Well, this is a very new thought for us to have to consider, but this is a very important one. I'm glad you brought this to our attention. Dr. Stulberg, thank you. Can you give us a website to leave us with?
Absolutely. If you'd like to learn more about our program or where you can dispose of in your local community, you just go to NM for Northwestern Medicine, nm.org/radio.
Very good, which is where I found the picture that I'm showing on the streaming thing. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you so much.
Fox News, I'm Chris Foster. After basically sparing Puerto Rico, Hurricane Dorian is now forecast to get stronger as it approaches Florida's east coast over the next couple of days. FEMA's acting administrator Pete Gaynor tells Fox,
the cone of uncertainty is as far south as Key West and as far north as Jacksonville, even into Georgia.
The storm's knocked out a lot of power throughout the Virgin Islands passing through. A smaller field is set for next month's Democratic Party primary debate in Houston.
Candidates had to get 2% in at least 4 qualifying polls and secure 130,000 unique donors. 10 of them did it, getting a spot on the stage.